What's going on? Alex here, and today I'm going to be talking about the top 5 reasons to become a tax preparer. That's right, this is going to be the first of a series of 2 videos. Now, in this one, I'm going to talk about the pros of becoming a tax preparer, the advantages, and then the next video, I'm going to talk about the top 5 reasons not to become a tax preparer, so you can hear all about the disadvantages. I'm always about giving you guys both the pros and cons so you can make an informed decision, and that's what we're doing today. Now, you might be asking, what are your qualifications to even present the top 5 reasons to become a tax preparer? Well, myself, I became a CPA in 2010, and I've worked at firms such as PricewaterhouseCoopers and also a bunch of small tax firms. And at this point, I've filed hundreds, if not thousands, of tax returns for individuals and businesses. So I would say that I have a bit of experience in this area and a bit of knowledge about the field that I can share with you guys. With that, let's jump right in. Now, this first reason to become a tax preparer, I can tell you right off the bat, is going to be controversial, but stay with me. Let me explain it. Hear me out, and you'll know exactly what I'm saying. The first reason to become a tax preparer is that it can be intellectually stimulating when you're getting into tax research, problem solving, and all those things, okay? Hear me out. I'm not talking about entering W-2s into the tax software. I'm not talking about entering interest from an interest statement into the tax software. That stuff is certifiably boring, and I agree with that. But when you get into tax preparation and consultation and helping clients and working through issues and trying to interpret the tax code to see how they can pursue their situation in the most advantageous manner, or if your client did ABC, how could we possibly look at this from an income tax perspective that's advantageous to them instead of disadvantageous, right? And that's where you'll find yourself reading through tax court cases, the code, treasury regulations. You'll have 3 different tax court cases in front of you, and each one has little aspects of your client's situation, and you'll have to sit there and piece together all of the facts and circumstances of those different cases to give your client guidance, because at the end of the day, they're not going to read those cases. They are looking to you to sort through all that information and tell them in very simple terms what their options are, the pros and cons of going one direction versus another, and that will allow them to make an informed decision and also feel like they're making an informed decision. So I find that when I'm deep into the tax research, in the wormhole of the Internal Revenue Code, if you will, time flies. And it doesn't feel like work because you know that you're going to get a specific answer one way or the other. Problem solving, looking at situations from different perspectives, there's some creativity that goes into it as well, just because a certain set of circumstances might look very different if you just take a different perspective. And that can apply to income taxes, right? So looking at circumstances ABC might land your client in $500,000 worth of tax debt, when if you simply say, hey, wait a minute, did you have this or didn't you have this happening? Then your interpretation of the situation may change just by asking the right questions, which can save your clients hundreds, thousands, hundreds of thousands, or millions of dollars. All right? In that case, this becomes a lot more interesting, and certainly that's where the intellectual element comes from. It's not in the rote entry of numbers into tax software. The thinking part of it is where it gets exciting, all right? So I asked an attorney one time who was also a CPA what the difference was between being an attorney and going through legal cases and all these different things, and what we do as tax professionals, where we have to sort through tax court cases and we have to read the law and interpret it and look at the regulations and interpret those. So I asked this attorney, what's the difference between legal work that you do and what we do within the scope of the Internal Revenue Code, or Title 26? And the attorney thought about it for a second. He goes, Title 26? You can have it. Which was basically, I took to be an acknowledgement of, hey, you know, this is very similar to legal analysis, legal work, if you will, within the confines of the Internal Revenue Code. So that's where it gets interesting. That's where it gets engaging. And certainly it can even become fun in certain cases when you know that you nail that fact pattern for your client and they're going to save a tremendous amount just through working with you based on the research that you did. So that's a huge point. That's what keeps me coming back to this, because there are a lot of other aspects of accounting and tax that I could work on, but the tax preparation piece is crucial in allowing you to work through these different situations and advise clients accordingly. That's when you get deadly in terms of consulting with clients, because if you're not in the preparation area and you're just consulting, you get a bit away from the mechanics of how the taxes work, right? So you know which forms to file, you know what the deadlines are, you know the procedure for this and that. You're able to walk clients through it instead of being further away in the consulting side where you're just talking in more generalities, all right? Clients really like the nuts and bolts approach for you to tell them, okay, we're at A, we're going to do B, C, D, and E, and that's how we're going to resolve this issue for you. They find tremendous value in that, because if you're talking in general terms, then clients don't feel that connection that you're going to take them past the finish line. And that's important. That's where they find value. So one of the reasons of becoming a tax preparer is that it can be intellectually stimulating. And it may surprise you. I know this is a controversial point. People are saying, taxes are boring. What, are you out of your mind? Try to research a tax question. Look at the code, the regs, some tax court cases, and see if it doesn't interest you. You might be surprised. All right, let's look at reason number 2. It can increase your effectiveness as a financial advisor, consultant, or business owner. What does that mean? I've never heard the notion that someone can have too much tax knowledge. And I can't tell you how many startups I talk to, and they have 2 entrepreneurs, 3 entrepreneurs. They started a business. They may not even have expected to make a lot of money, but now they're sitting on $500,000, $1 million, $10 million in income before they even knew what happened. They don't have experience with it. They're not knowledgeable in what forms to file or what's a partnership versus a single member LLC, what the differences are. And they're stuck because now if they have to file a partnership return, it's probably late and there's some penalties and interest associated with that now, which can all be avoided if at least one of the partners or one of the business owners has some knowledge, even if it's cursory background knowledge of income taxes, how they work, what you need to file, what the deadlines are, and so forth. They can save businesses hundreds, if not thousands of dollars just by having someone on board who's knowledgeable in this area. Similarly, if you have a background in the tax field to begin with, then you add that much more value to any business that you join because you're able to guide them through all of these issues and avoid headaches down the line. So that makes you deadlier as a business owner. The other thing I find with financial advisors is that they're able to take their clients only so far. Okay, so if they're an investment person, they could say, okay, we can reallocate your portfolio in this way and increase your exposure to risk in that way, and hopefully increase your returns as well. The client's next question is always going to be, what are the tax impacts of that? Is that going to cost me more in taxes? Or what are my returns going to be after tax? And if the advisor goes, oh, I don't know, talk to your tax guy, that might be a problem because they're going to end up talking to me. And guess what? I'm familiar with the investment side and I'm familiar with the tax side. So I may be able to help that client in ways that the financial advisor may not. And down the line, they may become only my client. And I eat that advisor's lunch because I know my way around the tax side of things. And I have more of a 360-degree view in that regard. It's a competitive landscape out there. So the more tools you have available, the better you might do. So it's important to make sure that you have the Swiss Army knife approach where you can help clients in this area, help clients in that area. You don't have to be an expert in each, but it's good to have the background on the tax side because it's basically the second question that anybody's ever going to ask you. The first question is, can I do this? The second question, what are the tax implications? And this is where a lot of people fall off, especially the financial advisors that I've worked with. And when I was a financial advisor, I didn't know much about taxes either until I went for the enrolled agent exam. That's when I really sharpened my teeth on the tax side. Similarly, if someone is a consultant for businesses, to not understand the tax side, I think is the Achilles heel because no matter what transaction you advise on, the bigger the transaction, the more important the tax implications. If you look at Yahoo, for example, they were trying to figure out what would happen if they divested their Alibaba stake. And they couldn't get a clear answer from their tax advisors. So I'm sure they employed an outside firm of tax professionals to go in and try to understand those tax implications of just paying out that Alibaba stake to the shareholders. They couldn't do it either. So then Yahoo ended up having to ask the IRS, hey, what are the tax implications of this if we do this? Are we going to have to pay taxes or not? And the IRS didn't even give them guidance. So the tax understanding, the tax advice is extremely important if you're going to consult businesses on making acquisitions, mergers, sales of assets, purchases of other companies, because it may result in a huge tax bill that comes as a surprise. And I don't think clients are going to be happy if they're subject to 10%, 15, 20% tax rate that they didn't expect. All right. So that's where it'll increase your effectiveness as the financial advisor. No doubt about that. As a consultant, absolutely. And as a business owner, because sometimes when you're flying solo, there's nobody there to tap you on the shoulder, say, hey, by the way, make sure you pay that LA City business tax. Make sure you file the LLC returns for California. All of these things could come as a surprise. And especially if there's just one person at the wheel, it can become an expensive problem to fix, because us CPAs, when we're fixing messes from the past, it doesn't come cheap. All right, so just keep that in mind. There's no such thing as too much tax knowledge, okay? It's never going to go to waste. So that is another benefit of becoming a tax preparer. Let's look at number 3. Demand is currently high as baby boomer tax professionals are retiring. You know, back before COVID, we used to go to these training seminars on an annual basis to make sure that we're kept sharp on the latest and greatest advancements in the tax code, in the area altogether. And I would look around the room. There would be about 100 people there. And there was a lot of gray hairs in the room. I noticed at that time, even though I have a few gray hairs of my own, a lot of people around me had even more, if you could believe it. And at that point, I started to understand that the average age of tax preparers is probably up there. And it makes sense if you think about, hey, baby boomers, there were a lot of them. And if they were working throughout their lives as CPAs, they're probably getting to the point right now where they're set to retire, and they are. The last minute changes to the tax code, the new tax forms that come out all the time, the increased complexity at the state level, all these issues I'm going to cover in that second video, so make sure you subscribe. They are not helping, especially the older tax professionals out there, stay in the field. They're starting to lose it, right? If you follow some of the forums that tax professionals post on, you'll see the frustration. It's getting more brutal in terms of the busy seasons. Everything is getting more compressed. Clients are getting more antsy. The IRS is completely unresponsive. We'll cover this in the next video. But the point is, there's a lot of availability. And there aren't so many tax professionals coming into the field, because you think if you're in school, there are some areas that are much more attractive than accounting, right? There's biotech. You think you can get into computer science. All of these areas that are much more attractive than accounting, at least more than it used to be. You have a lot of people leaving. You don't have a lot of people coming in. So the phone rings, all right? At some point this year, we were getting in more calls than we could even answer from prospective clients. And the calls that we were able to answer, they always said the same thing. My CPA just retired, all right? You keep hearing this over and over again. CPA retired, CPA retired. So if you are a student thinking about getting into taxes, or you're already on that path and you're not too sure, or if you're thinking of switching careers, it might be something to consider, all right? Because a lot of other career paths don't have any growth associated with them at the moment. But right now, the tax field is absolutely booming, and the fact that the IRS is broken even helps matters, I'm sorry to say, for us, because clients are not able to reach the IRS at all these days to resolve issues. So the tax representation work just comes flowing in like an avalanche. It's the reality of it, all right? You can't beat supply and demand, and right now the demand is certainly there. Another point on this is that when you read the tax preparer forums, you'll find that one of the biggest issues is hiring right now. It's not even getting the work. It's getting enough qualified, knowledgeable people to do the work. Because you'll get kids coming out of school, and they're great and they're smart, but they know nothing about the tax code. All right. And you have to build that foundation over time. Now, the experienced professionals, they're also hard to come by because it's a tight market. There aren't too many of them. So these firms are competing ferociously for the talent. All right. That's a good sign if you're in a particular industry. So there it is. Demand is high. Beautiful thing. Now, that leads me to top fourth reason to become a tax preparer. You guys ready? All right. And that is the ability to hang a shingle. What does that mean? It means to start your own business. People dream about this all the time. They want to go off on their own. They want to start their own business. They always dreamed of having their own firm. That's all well and good. And the beauty is that unlike other businesses that are capital intensive, you need tens of thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars. There are huge barriers in place for new entrants into the field. Well, guess what? And maybe I shouldn't even say this, it's detrimental to me, but the barriers to entry on the tax side are becoming lower and lower every single day. It used to be that to purchase tax software, you needed to spend 20 grand up front, 30 grand up front to pay a big time tax software provider to give you access to the software. Well, in recent years, you're able to pay on a per return basis, which means the upfront cost is negligible. It's almost zero. And bam, you've got the top tier software packages available to you, and you only pay them when you open a new tax return, which means you're going to get paid for it. No upfront investment. What more could you ask for? Aside from that, technology is making everything easier. I have a firm here based in LA. We don't meet any clients. We have an office, but we don't meet any clients in person. Even if they're down the street, they say, oh, I'm 2 blocks away. I'll come by. I'll visit you. We tell them, we would love to see you, but the way we've been set up from day one is everything's done completely remotely. So we have clients all over the country, and for better or worse, we never get to meet the vast majority of them. All right? So the ability to get work done without even having the in-person element is great. You can focus on the work. You don't have to have an office full of people with couches and this and that. You get a lot more bang for your buck in terms of the real estate that you pay for. So that office space is used much more efficiently because you can have it operate as a workshop essentially and not just as a beautiful place to meet clients once a year. And you can't really beat the affordability of the tech as well, because again, you don't have to pay thousands of dollars up front to get these software packages going. You just pay on a monthly basis for the subscriptions and you ramp up as you need to. All right. You get a customer relationship management software, scheduling software, time tracking, all these different things are able to be added to your business when you're ready for it. All right. So with that, low startup costs, benefits from technology, you are looking good if you want to get into the tax business right now. I don't think there's ever been a better time. And post-COVID, people are used to not seeing you in person. This was a hard sell before COVID because clients will say, well, I don't get to meet you in person. No. I want somebody where I can shake their hand. And I say, okay, understandable. Wish you all the best. Now people are saying, oh, I don't have to deal with traffic. I don't have to deal with parking. Where do I sign up? Shut up and take my money is what we're hearing. So this is a beautiful thing. I've always dreamed of having my own firm, and I was able to do it as well. And I can tell you, I was not born with any silver spoon in my mouth, and certainly not a trust fund baby. So if I'm able to bootstrap a business from essentially nothing to an operation that pays all the bills in a very short period of time, should tell you a lot. And if I could do it, a lot of other people could do it. I can tell you that. That's why the fourth reason to become a tax preparer is the ability to start your own business, hang a shingle. And it goes along with reason number 3, that demand is huge right now. You're not going to be at a loss for finding clients. If you're competent, you're reliable, and you can communicate, then there's work available. Probably more than you can handle. Just saying. All right. With that, if you're still watching the video, hit that like button. Por favor, subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment down below. I love reading your comments. And hit that bell icon to be notified of future videos, because part 2 is coming up where I talk about the top 5 reasons not to become a tax preparer. All right, so everything's rosy in this video. It's not going to be so rosy in the next one. I can tell you that. But let's take a look at the 5th top reason to become a tax preparer. Here we go. And that is opportunities to specialize and increase your income. One of the benefits, and some would argue the downsides, of the tax area is how vast the field is. There are so many different areas. There's foreign income taxation. You could focus on individual. You could focus on corporate. You could focus on expats. You can focus on content creators. That's a new thing that came along recently, and happened to release a video that happened to do with content creation and the tax implications thereof. It's almost 50,000 views on that video and become kind of a subject area expert, if you will, inadvertently. But with so many different areas to specialize, especially the foreign area, the penalties in this area can be $10,000 if you don't file a single form, $100,000 if you don't file a form, all right? So clients are going to pay you top dollar to avoid having to deal with a $100,000 penalty, all right? And that's where it begins. So filing a return and then charging $10,000 for it, you don't even blink an eye. Filing a return, charging $25,000 for it, in some cases, you don't blink an eye. Whereas a corporate return, you'll file for $2,500. Okay, that's something. But if you file, let's say, a return for an expat and they have multiple countries that they're dealing with, income from multiple states and so forth, that can very quickly add up. And you can have a sizable business with very few clients just by knowing your stuff in this area. It's not easy. It's very technical. And the risk is high because if you fail to file a form by a day, now there's a potential $100,000 penalty. Yes, there's upside and downside associated with that. But if you specialize, let's say in real estate, 1031 transactions, you have a plethora of nuances that you can address with your clients in that area to save them huge amounts of money. There's qualified opportunity funds. That could be an area all in and of itself. And you get to pick and choose what's interesting to you, and that will determine what your work consists of, all right? So huge amount of flexibility. It's not rigid. You can explore what you like, what you don't like, and from there, you can see where the profit lies, okay? And there's certainly areas that are very profitable in the tax field. Even with COVID, there were tremendous opportunities. There's the employee retention credit. There are firms that are doing this full time, just reaching out to businesses saying, hey, have you filed for your employee retention credit? Let's do it. Now, I'm not talking about the shady firms, the fly-by-night operators that are scamming people. I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about legitimate firms that are following the rules with the employee retention credit. You can make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year just by filing for ERC, employee retention credit, for companies. Nothing else, okay? Aside from that, you had Paycheck Protection Program, PPP loans, all right? Another huge opportunity where it was essentially free money for businesses. A lot of them didn't know about it. A lot of them didn't know how to apply. A lot of them missed the deadlines. But tremendous value add if you reach out to a business, say, hey, I'm going to do $10,000 worth of work for you, and the potential tax savings is $100,000, or a potential tax-free income is $100,000. All right. Now, we're not getting into contingent fees here. Don't get me wrong, but there's a lot of opportunity and a lot of area to really not have to work all that much, but make a sizable living and also build a business on top of that. What more can you ask for? All right. So those are the top 5 reasons to become a tax preparer. Tell me in the comments, was this compelling? Was it enough to sway your view on the tax field one way or the other? Or are you the objective type that needs to hear both sides? So you're waiting for video number 2 where I talk about the top 5 reasons not to become a tax preparer. That's fine. I need you to hear both sides, and then I welcome your opinions. So if you found this video helpful, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, add a comment down below. I love reading your comments, and hit that bell to be notified of future videos. Aside from that, hopefully this was helpful. Thanks for watching. All right, before I go, I see we have a question here from Hamish, and it goes as follows. What do you think about getting started as a TurboTax auditor? So This might be a bit of a controversial question to ask a tax preparer because in the field, we recognize that the company that makes TurboTax, which is called Intuit, which also happens to make our professional tax software called Lacert, they're competing with us, right? Because they're giving us our tax software as professionals, but they're also selling personal tax preparation software directly to clients. In a way, they're saying, don't use that expensive CPA to prepare your taxes. Use TurboTax. All right. And what we see is that Intuit is attaching additional services to what they offer directly to consumers. What I mean by that is for QuickBooks, they're tacking on the bookkeeping service, which I've heard less than positive things about. Similarly, it sounds like on the TurboTax side, they're offering some sort of assistance program where you can pay them a little bit more and have a CPA either review or look over your tax return to give you some sort of assurance of whether you did something right. Here's my candid feedback because I always keep it real with you guys. As a tax professional, I also receive these offers from Intuit to say, hey, join the TurboTax team. You'll be able to answer questions for clients. It'll be great. You'll be awesome. You'll live the life you've always dreamed of, right? They promise you the world. And what ends up happening? You go through the little meeting with them, and all throughout, I'm saying, just tell me how much you pay. That's it. If it's less than my hourly rate, I don't care. It doesn't even matter to me. I'd rather do direct client work, real client work, than sit there and wait for the call from some TurboTax client. And it always comes down to them offering $26 an hour, $15 an hour, $12 an hour. I've heard different things depending on what role you're applying for it into it. And for a CPA, that's insulting. That rate is insulting. I'm not saying anybody who makes $20 an hour, this and that, but you need a master's degree to become a CPA. There's a lot of cost involved. Offices aren't free. The software isn't free. The continuing education isn't free, right? So when we're offered these rates that do not come anywhere close to what we could charge clients directly, that's like a slap in the face. So you have to ask yourself, who is working for Intuit on the TurboTax side to help clients? What caliber of individual do you attract that during busy season is helping clients file their own tax return through TurboTax as opposed to working with clients directly as a professional? Are you attracting top tier talent, or are you attracting somebody that is essentially failing at being a tax professional who's willing to wait for the scraps and the crumbs that fall from the Intuit table? I would venture to say the latter, okay? So I personally have not heard good things about any of these tacked on services, be it the bookkeeping on the QuickBooks side or the tax help on the TurboTax side, because at the end of the day, you get what you pay for. It's as simple as that. And if something is too cheap these days, I mean, it used to be different for me. There used to be a time where I thought cheaper is better. But now, being that I'm a little bit older and have a few more gray hairs, I've come to realize that I don't want cheap, okay? Because cheap tells me that I'm probably gonna have to replace it soon, that I'm probably gonna have to get it done again at some point, that it's probably not gonna last very long. Whereas expensive tells me that the market has determined that this has value. And I'd much rather buy an expensive thing these days than have to replace it and learn a new thing and, oh, it's broken and, oh, it didn't work as well. I don't need that in my life, all right? So the services that I purchase for my firm that my clients end up using, like our file transfer software, our invitation scheduling software, that's all top tier stuff. We don't go for cheap, okay? When you go with those TurboTax add-ons, you're getting cheap, all right? And you have to understand the pros and cons associated with that. I wouldn't recommend it. I wouldn't use it. Taxes are kind of high stakes, guys. A tax problem can change your life. And if it's some person behind a monitor somewhere in the country, you don't even know who or where they are, it's not going to be the utmost accountability that you're getting on that front. That's my opinion. If they'll improve it sometime in the future, maybe we'll revisit that. But at the end of the day, it's kind of like the Walmart of tax prep. If that's what you want, that's what you get. But you have to be understanding of the fact that it's probably not top tier help. Just based on the rates, I could determine that. All right. Hopefully that helps. Hamish, thank you for your question. I appreciate it. And we've got another question from AC. I love when you guys drop questions. That's the whole idea of live streaming, okay? I don't come on here to live stream for the health of it. It's simply because to get your real-time feedback. So the question is, what do you use to stay up to date aside from continuing education? That's a great question. As a CPA, you'll find that if you are a tax preparer, if you're an auditor, if you're in the field, you're going to be subscribed to one or more publications that keeps you current on tax events, because there's no way you're going to stay on top of all the tax law changes, all the state changes, all of the treasury regulations coming out and so forth. So you have to have aggregators that you use to bring all that information together. And I'll be real straight up with you. The Tax Advisor is an excellent resource. So if you go to, I believe it's the taxadvisor.com. All right. Tremendous publication. Okay. So these guys will keep you current on what is important. Okay. So key tax provisions in the Senate reconciliation bill. You've got all these other headlines. The Tax Advisor is top tier stuff. And that's one of the ways that I keep in touch with what's going on in the tax field. Now, another awesome resource is Spidell. All right. So Spidell are based in California, so they do specialize in the California side of things in terms of taxes, but you'll find that their seminars, their publications, they got their newsletters, amazing sources of information, and they will condense all of the new tax information and give it to you in bullet point format so you can relate to your clients. So if you can subscribe to their even free publications or free emails, that's helpful even in and of itself. All right. So they have these flash emails that they will send out every once in a while. And when there's current events or things that are important, they'll go ahead and outline it here. So for example, IRS acknowledges erroneous notices to certain married filing joint taxpayers. That can be something that you can call your client and say, hey, that notice you received, it's incorrect, and here's more information on that. Makes it really easy to send them this news brief so that they can understand what's going on. So Spidell's another amazing source of information. Now, if you're a tax professional, you might also benefit from taxprotalk.com, where yours truly also posts some answers every now and then. But if you go on this forum right here, you have to be a tax professional. You can't be a civilian, as we'll refer to you in the industry. But over here, you'll have amazing threads with some of them have hundreds of replies. And you'll see professionals responding with their rationale, with the authority that they have from either the tax code or tax court case, regulations, what have you. So this is an excellent way to keep on top of news as well, because when there's a current event or something that just comes out, it's probably at the top page of this forum right here. So Tax Pro Talk is a beautiful thing. One area that I will not get information from, and I think is a terrible source, is Reddit. Okay. I know I answer a lot of questions from Reddit, but Reddit has a section called Reddit Tax. Okay. So here is where people ask tax questions and get supposed tax answers. Most of the answers that I see on this website are wrong. I'll just say it right there. They are wrong and far off from the truth. And I think it has to do with the fact that there's no self-promotion allowed in this forum, which means that any serious tax professional has no reason to be on here whatsoever. There's no benefit. You can't even point to your firm after you provide a beautiful, well-written answer. They will block you and ban you. I am permanently banned from every personal finance-related subreddit, tax pros, financial planning, every one that you could name, I'm banned. All right, there's a personal finance. I'm banned from that one as well. So Reddit doesn't allow self-promotion, so I have no reason as a tax professional to answer questions on Reddit. And a lot of the answers I see here makes me slap my forehead because I'm thinking, oh my God, not only is this wrong, it's completely wrong. It's totally off. So watch out for Reddit specifically. Now, Tax Pro Talk is great because you need to be a tax professional. So any yokel can't just come on here and start answering questions. Not the case with Reddit, and there's no incentive here to be a tax professional answering questions. So terrible on all fronts. I would avoid it like the plague. Now, aside from that, in terms of getting tax information and updates, that's really what I rely on for the most part. And then you'll also, over time, start subscribing to various IRS updates and publications as well. So they'll send you alerts also, and you'll just find yourself kind of being in the zone of getting all these updates from different directions. And by that, you'll stay constant and current on what's going on. So hopefully, AC, that answers your question. We have another question. I love you guys' questions. This is the whole idea here, is to make this live, and feels great. So keep them coming. All right. So this question is from, I might butcher your name. I apologize. Kimitha. All right. I tried my best. What is the best software to choose if you are new to tax preparation? Great question. As I mentioned earlier, it used to be the case that to get into the tax prep business, you had to shell out thousands or tens of thousands of dollars before you can even hang your shingle or open your business, because they said, oh, you want our software? You got to pay up. And you had to pay up front for a certain number of returns. So let's say you purchased 200 returns up front or 500 returns up front. And you didn't have any flexibility to say, hey, I'm still a little guy. Can I just purchase 10 returns or 100 returns? They'll say, no, 200 or nothing. Okay. So at that point, it was very difficult to get started in the tax prep business. So you would have no choice but to go to a very low cost tax software provider. Now, one that comes to mind, and I'm going to catch flack for this, but hey, I'm here to keep it real, is Drake. All right. This is when you think of cheap software, and I meant to spell that correctly, but when you think of cheap tax software, you think of Drake. Now, I'm not sponsored by any tax software at all, one way or the other. I couldn't care less about any of these companies. But Drake is the name that always comes to mind where people think, oh, how can I get into tax prep in the cheapest way possible? I've tried Drake software when I was working for other firms as a third-party preparer. So I wasn't in their firm, but I was working on their returns on their system, and Drake was the software that they used. And I got to tell you, I got nothing to gain or lose from this. I'll be just real straight. Drake looked like a child's toy made in the year 1994. Okay? It didn't look like a serious tax software. There were so many issues with it. The interface is absolutely ancient. I don't think it's changed since. That was a number of years ago. Maybe it has. I'll qualify the statement. But it would seem like a good solution. I mean, if we look at the pricing here, I don't know if they have it on the site. So here you go. Power bundle, $18.75. You got all these things included. You got $17.25 unlimited, and then pay per return. They have $3.45, what have you. The issue is that your tax software is an important tool in your arsenal, and you have to rely on it, because when you've been doing this 16 hours straight, you need the software to give you a diagnostic that says, hey, buddy, your mortgage interest is really high. Are you sure that's the right number? And you go, oh my God, that's not the right number. Thank God for the diagnostics. Drake, in my experience, completely lacked in this area. And if you wanted to file a partnership return with none of the checkboxes checked off, well, go right ahead. Terrible, terrible. Because the question is that even a full tax return? We don't know. Back to my point. This software, while it may seem cheap up front, I would say that the cost comes down the line when you file a tax return that's missing half of the information, because Drake would not tell you about it in the diagnostic, okay? My approach would be to use Lacert at the very minimum. And the reason I say that is because they also have a per tax return option. And in my experience, you just get a lot for your money here, okay? So you have, let's see, Lacert 200, Lacert Unlimited, Lacert Rep, all of this stuff. The important thing is that they will allow you to pay per return. So you don't have to pay 20 grand in the front. You don't have to pay 10 grand in the front. You might pay 300 something up front. And the diagnostics in Lacert are very useful and very powerful. I actually did a 2-part video on this channel about the pros and cons of Lacert. So take a look at that. The program hasn't changed much since then. So you'll get a really in-depth analysis of what's good and what's not good about Lacert. But that's where I would start, even if I was budget conscious. When I started my firm with 0 clients, I went with Lacert. I didn't want to bother changing tax prep softwares later in the game. That's very difficult to do, very time consuming, and the probability of making a mistake are very high. So you want to choose a software from the beginning that you're going to stick with. And for me, that was always Lacert. Some of these packages may look cheap up front, but you have to wonder, how am I going to pay for that down the line? Again, you got to be wary of cheap stuff. There's a reason. All right. But Drake does work for a lot of people. All right. A lot of esteemed professionals on Tax Pro Talk, they swear by Drake. So I don't want to knock it. I don't want to say that it's not for anybody, but certainly not for me, in my experience. I would go with Lacert. So hopefully, Kimitha, that answers your question. Thank you so much for asking. I appreciate it. All right, so we got another question coming in. I love it, guys. Drop it in the comments if you want this to become a weekly thing, because my thought was every, let's say, Wednesday at 7 o'clock p.m. Pacific, 10 o'clock Eastern, we do this for an hour. Just a Q&A of different tax questions, financial planning, all these different things. And you could just tune in at the same time every time, and I'll be here. Let me know what you think of that. Drop it in the comments down below. All right, this next question comes from Chaldine and goes as follows. I want to make at least doctor money being an accountant. Doctors here in Canada make $300,000 on average. How much can I charge a client being their accountant? It's a great question. Now, I'm going to preface my answer by saying I know zero about Canada. Okay? So with that, let me just put this question up on the screen here if I could. All right. And if you are in the US, I can certainly provide some guidance here. But let's get this up on the screen just so everybody sees the question. All right. Now, let's take a look. So if you're a CPA, you have flexibility in terms of the types of clients you take on, the number of clients you take on, and what you do for those clients. And the important thing to keep in mind is that over time, your client base is going to grow. You get to be more selective with the clients that you take on, which means that while you would have taken a small client that's only billing $1,000 to $2,000 a year for you, you may say, look, if a client's not billing $4,000 a year, we don't take them on. So you become more selective. You become better at choosing the higher value, more profitable clients. And you may even start to specialize in an area where you say, look, we don't do areas A, B, C anymore. We just focus on D, E, and F because that's where the juice is. Okay? So when you, let me get the right question up here, first of all. So when you specialize, that is what gives you the ability to determine your own income. All right. So making $300,000 as an accountant, you can reach that if you're doing the marketing right, if you're doing good work for people, and if you're getting yourself out there by doing things such as posting on social media, kind of like doing what I'm doing now, and you're doing good work consistently. I would say that you could do $300,000 in your second or third year of going out on your own. It's not unrealistic given today's environment here in the US, at least. Now, down the line, it really matters as to what kind of individual you are. Are you somebody that is a solo entrepreneur, meaning that you're just living this by yourself? You don't want a team. You don't want to deal with other people. You're just going to be the lone wolf. Then that's going to limit your income. All right. And there's a lot of solo CPAs out there who are retiring now that never built a team. They didn't want an empire. They just wanted to have their thing, and that means that their income was capped. Now, that cap could be $700,000, could be $1.2 million, it could be $1.5 million in revenue. That's very doable as a solo CPA doing taxes. But if you had formed a team from early on, you would have been able to leverage that into potentially a firm with 10 people, with 20 people, 50 people. What does that look like? And I would say your compensation would be a lot greater than $300,000 in that respect. So you can get there by doing your solo thing, or you can get there by making a team, which can accelerate your income. But it's not unheard of for these solo CPAs to be clearing $500,000 in terms of the gross income. And then on the net basis, you're looking at about $250,000 in some cases, $300,000, depending on how your practice is set up. But there's no upper limit, especially considering the fact that there's so much demand right now and a lot of CPAs are leaving the business. So to answer your question, I don't think it's unrealistic to make $300,000, but you're most likely have to go off on your own, hang that shingle, and at that point, you have the opportunity to get that sort of income. Until and unless you do that, if you're working as an accountant at some firm, that's going to limit your potential, right? And my understanding is if you're, let's say, an auditor at a Big Four firm, you're not going to see $300,000 until and unless you make partner, which could take 15 years. But if you're a solo person, you're doing the marketing correctly, you're making videos, you're posting content, then that can accelerate your income significantly. All right, so hopefully that adds some color to that situation. All right, so Kimitha, you're very welcome. Thank you. Drop a like on this video if you're enjoying yourself, getting some value out of it. All right, so this next question comes from, again, I'm going to butcher your name here, but Jose. All right, and the question is, any tax courses you recommend to become a tax professional? I believe on this channel, I have a video reviewing exactly what I use to get my EA license or credential, however you want to call it. And that was essentially passkey. All right. So if you are looking to ace the 3 EA exams, and that course was all I needed. I took all 3 exams within a month. And you can see here, they have all these different courses. They have EA Review, Part 1, Part 2, Part 3. That's all you need right there. You see these 3 boxes? That's all you need. They have the course number 1 on individuals, course number 2 on businesses right here, and then course number 3 on representation, and there's also legal matters there and procedures and so forth. So for me personally, it took 30 days, 3 exams, 10 days apart. So 10 days for the first one, 10 for the second one, 10 for the third, bada bing, bada boom, I'm an EA. So hopefully that answers your question. I didn't really need anything else aside from that. I would say that my master's program prepared me somewhat. It formed a little bit of a foundation, like a little wafer of a foundation. All right, and we were able to build on top of that with the EA courses. Until I took this course, I pretty much knew nothing about taxes. I had trouble doing my own taxes, okay? But this course propelled things to the next level. I think it's on a subscription basis now, or it's a digital form. I don't really know, but you can buy from Amazon and you'll be all taken care of. Again, I don't get a single dollar from passkey. Maybe I should, but I get absolutely nothing for recommending this to you guys. I just know that it's the best and it worked for me. All right. And check out that video if you want more info. I go a little bit more in depth into as to how these courses work. All right. So we got another question here. Let's keep them coming, guys. I love this stuff. You know, if you guys ask enough questions, this is going to be a regular thing. All right. So this next question is, I want to build a big accounting firm. I always compare success with a doctor's salary. Okay. Do I have to go door to door knocking to get clients, or are advertisements sufficient? Fascinating. Fascinating. This is a question I had to tackle myself, because when I started, there was 0 clients, all right? It was just me in my bedroom in an apartment in Hollywood. And I was thinking, how am I going to grow this thing? Nobody knows me, and they have no reason to trust me because I have no track record. And if they look up my address on Google Maps, they'll see it's a crappy apartment in Hollywood. That's not a good face. And I decided that I'm going to hack my way to being successful in any way that I can possibly do it. One of the ideas I had was to start making videos, because I watched YouTube all the time. I'll get lost in the wormhole of watching this video and that video, and before you know it, you're like, what am I doing with my life? It was extremely effective. Also, let's not forget, it's the second largest search engine. So people looking for a solution to a problem, they'll go to Google, and very quickly they'll go to YouTube. So making those videos was actually extremely helpful, because then the phone started ringing. Okay, now not everybody's capable of doing content. Not everybody wants to do content. And in that case, you will have to rely on advertising. But advertising costs money. Content doesn't have to cost that much money. Okay, so in terms of cost benefit, I thought, hey, if I put out 100 videos, that'll cost me very little in terms of incremental cost. But if I go the advertising route, now I'm competing with Price Waterhouse. Now I'm competing with the big firm down the street. Now I'm competing with that firm down the street for the same keywords. It can get ugly if you're very new and someone clicks your ad and finds out that you're just working out of your bedroom in Hollywood. They might hang up the phone as soon as they find that out. But you paid $12 for that click? Terrible. Advertising, I find, works better when you have a bit of traction, a bit of a reputation, because then clients can make an educated assumption that you're not a complete scam artist, just based on the fact that there's some credibility out there. To start advertising from day one, to get clients to then find out that you're not some big shot firm, you're a small fry, your conversion rate might suffer, but you're still paying for the click. So if I was to go about it, there's never been a better time to utilize social media, utilize the channels that we have that provide free advertising to take over the world. So you have to weigh the cost benefit. If you have a bunch of money laying around and you hate being on camera, by all means, advertise. You could throw all of your money at Google and Facebook and all of this advertising. You will definitely get clients. But if you need to be scrappy, if you're bootstrapping, if you need to make a little go a long way, consider investing in a camera. Start talking about what you're passionate about. Start talking about what you know about. And you may be surprised. I never thought that anybody would watch any of this that I'm putting out there. I thought I was yelling into a camera and then uploading it to the void. But much to my surprise, people tuned in and the phone started to ring. And I got to the point where it was actually ringing too much. So assess what you have to work with. Do you have a personality that can work with a camera? Or are you completely shy, and do you break down where you have to think about what to say? Do you get flustered? Do you get lost? Or can you just roll with it? Some people have to give the gap, some don't. Aside from that, if you have hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars laying around, burning a hole in your pocket, you can get to 300 grand in income very quickly just through advertisement. So it can go either way, pros and cons to each. So hopefully that helps in terms of swaying your decision. All right, we got another question coming. I love you guys. Listen, drop a like on the video. Why don't you? All right, we've been here for, I don't even know how long. But we're going to keep rocking and rolling. So next question comes from Connor and goes as follows. All right, so what is the most ideal time to leave Big Four as a CPA and start your own firm? Tremendous question. This hits home because I myself started my career at Price Waterhouse Coopers, which at the time, and I'm pretty sure it's the same now, that was the Goldman Sachs of accounting. You couldn't ask to be in a more prestigious firm. Well, PwC and Deloitte kind of compete over which one's most prestigious, but I'll give it to PwC. I'm a little biased. With that, when you're working for the Big Four, they are churning you out. They will give you 14 hours of work, 16 hours of work, what have you, but they will keep you busy, to say the least. All right. And they're grinding the people because they only want to keep the ones that are most dedicated. They're most in it to win it. And it's not easy at the Big Four. Maybe I'll do a video about it if you guys are interested, ins and outs of working at the Big Four, but it's a grind. And I think at some point, everybody starts asking themselves the question of, what am I really doing here? Am I going to be here for the long term? Or is this something where I'm going to be out in a year or a year and a half, 2 years, and then go to something a little bit more sane in terms of work life balance, environment, intensity, and so forth. For me, I started feeling that around a year and a half. I thought, you know what, this is good, but I'm not really learning as much as I would like. And also, the corporate environment really wasn't for me. I felt that from the very beginning. I mean, if you want to talk about bureaucracy and red tape and putting on your tie and putting on a show for all the people in the room, having 5 different managers and so forth, then Big Four is for you. But for me, being the cog in the machine wasn't really exciting at all. So I didn't find it to be all that engaging. At a year and a half, I left. It was probably too early. I probably should have stuck around. The more you brave it out there, you'll have your teeth sharpened for the rest of your life. The way I approach my practice today and the documentation and the record keeping and everything is straight from PwC. You could trace it right back. And people have seen my work papers. They go, oh, this looks like Big Four. Well, it stays with you. I guess it's kind of, I've never been in the military, but I guess it's kind of like being through boot camp and doing a tour of duty. You never forget that. The military is always in your blood, right? I feel like it's the same case with the Big Four. So the longer you could stick around just to get that military body going, just to make sure that you're sharp, I would say try to stick it out. But at some point, what you could do is start taking a little work on the side. All right, a little bit of tax work. A few clients here, a few clients there. Help them work through their issues, file their returns, see how you like it. All right, because you still got the full-time gig. You're not risking that. And you're not looking at your bank account depleting every single month because you just quit your job to start this new firm, okay? It's gradual, all right? You got the income coming in and a little bit on the side, a little bit on the side, a little bit on the side. First, it'll allow you to figure out if you like this kind of work, because you might think after 5 clients, this is crazy. Why does anybody do this? This is insane. It's boring. It's stressful. I don't make as much money as I thought. I'm going to quit this and keep working at PwC. That's fine, because you didn't risk your career, right? You just started doing it on the side. But you might say, oh, I love this tax work, and start building that up to where you're working 80 hours a week just trying to keep on top of everything. In that case, you would have to evaluate, hey, you know, I'm making 75% what I make at PwC doing my side gig, and I love that, and it's growing, and I see more potential there. Then the cost benefit of staying with the Big Four really comes into question. Where do you see yourself in 5 years, in 10 years? Do you still want to work at the Big Four? Do you want to go to industry, or do you want to be the king of your castle? All right. Being a business owner is very stressful. It's not a get-rich-quick scheme by any means, but you got to love the flexibility that it gives you. If you want to go on vacation, you go on vacation. If you want to take a day off, you take a day off. If you want to hire a huge staff, that's what you do. Okay. I love that freedom. And to me, that's worth all of the downsides of leaving Big Four and not having the steady W-2 paycheck and so forth. So it doesn't get any better, in my opinion. And when's the most ideal time? It's the time when it makes sense for you. All right. Nobody could tell you 1 year, 2 year, 5 years. That's all nonsense, because it depends on your situation. What are your income dynamics? How much savings do you have? Do you even like the work? And is this something that you want to do full time? The best way to gauge that is to do that side hustle. I'm telling you, the perception I always had working at a job and doing the side hustle was, oh, clients are not going to want to deal with me because I'm not available during work hours. Or 9 to 5, I'm at the office, so they're not going to be able to deal with me, so they're going to get upset. Nobody cares. Actually, I found that it was beneficial to have clients reach out to me at 8 p.m., at 9 p.m., because that's where they're at home, and that's when they're not in the office, and they got to sneak in out of their cubicle and talk to you. It was actually a benefit, much to my surprise. So it's never an ideal time. It's never not an ideal time. It depends on your facts and circumstances. And if you're at the Big Four, you should be able to do the analysis and determine what makes sense. And the numbers will guide you. I'll tell you that much. The numbers don't lie. They will guide you. So hopefully that helps answer your question, Connor. All right. And another great question. Connor, you're just killing it today. All right. We're going to take a little hit of the tea, and then we're going to answer this question right here. If you guys are still sticking around, share the video, subscribe to the channel, hit that bell, would you? All right, give me 1 second. All right, this is live after all. So, appreciate you guys sticking around. I love you guys. Next question, also from Connor. How much can or should I charge as a CPA doing individual Tax returns for people. Boy, have I not dealt with this in the past few months. Let me explain. When I first started my practice, it was essentially just me with my little laptop in an apartment in Hollywood. And the question I had was, what can I charge? Because I'm new. I haven't filed all that many returns. I don't feel confident in myself. And I'm not established. So that made me think, hey, maybe I should charge below market just to get my name out there. Maybe I should take on clients and give them the best possible rate. Keep it cheap, bring them on, and then I'll raise prices. That is a huge mistake, all right? And I'm learning that now as we speak, because I've come to realize that a lot of the returns that even my practice does that we did back in the day are far below market. You should charge for your value, all right? If you can file a tax return, you're confident in your ability, you can do it on time, and you can deliver on your promise, charge market rates, okay? First of all, when you discount clients in the beginning, you're going to attract the clients that are the coupon clippers, okay? They are not looking for value, they're looking for cost. You never want to compete on cost because there's always going to be someone across the street that's willing to do it for $10 cheaper, for $12 cheaper, for $2 cheaper. You'll never win. It's a race to the bottom. Providing value is completely different because then you start to disassociate yourself from the cost. And you tell clients, we filed your return, we did it perfectly, there were no issues, it was filed on time, we remained communicative, we answered your questions, and we gave you confidence that it was being done right the first time. That's huge. In that case, your clients start to look at the value more than what they're spending. Those are the clients you want because they value what you do. When you're looking at cost, you're going to compete with places such as H&R Block, Liberty Tax, TurboTax, all of this other stuff. It has its place in the market, but it's not a CPA. All right. And those places will charge $200, $300 a return, $350 a return. In my opinion, those rates in Los Angeles are not sustainable to sustain a practice. Okay. The rates that we charge for an individual return start at $800 and go up from there depending on the complexity. Now, some clients might go, $800, what are you, out of your mind? Okay, it's not a fit. Perfect. There are plenty of other tax professionals out there that are willing to do the work. But at our firm, we have technology, the latest available, which allows the tax questionnaire to be done electronically, engagement letter to be signed electronically, invoices are paid electronically. We're communicative, we respond. The work is triple checked. It's not checked once, it's not checked twice, it's triple checked. So that when clients get their return, that's the final version. That's it. They never have to hear about that return again. And we don't ever get a client say, hey, you missed this, you forgot that, oh, you didn't include this, where's this on the return? It's all done and buttoned up tight. And when you focus on that value, you start to disconnect from cost, and that's where you want to be. Because if you turn yourself into a 1040 mil with thousands or hundreds of 1040 clients that are looking to pay bottom dollar, you will burn out. You're going to do 20 hours worth of work a day, and you're going to make as much as someone else who's doing it smarter instead of harder. You're going to make as much as they do in a few hours. Okay? So cheap is not the best way. Always focus on what the market rate is and what the value is that you're providing. And don't be afraid to turn away clients in the beginning because they're going to try to strong arm you. They're going to try to push the cost. They're going to call you and say, hey, I was wondering what the cost is to file. No. We're not focused on the cost. We're focused on the value. Okay? And it may not be a fit for all the clients, but if you can control yourself and avoid the fear of taking on those low profit, low cost clients, you're going to have a much better time in business because that's where the juice is. The clients that basically say, look, shut up. I don't care how much it costs. I want you to do it. Okay. And when you reach that point, the cost per return doesn't even much matter. Clients will pay for your expertise because they know you handled it correctly. And that's what you should focus on. Okay? Hopefully, Connor, that helps. Put some actual numbers on this thing here. And we got a comment here from Efrain, who says, "You're an inspiration, striving to hit 6 figures in my 3rd year in business, starting my preparation for next season now." Listen, there's a lot of money out there, and you just have to figure out how you want to position yourself, okay? Do you want to do a lot of work for very little, or do you want to do as little work as possible, but have it bill at the high rates because clients see the value? That's the question you have to ask yourself. Another question coming in here from Trevor. Trevor, welcome. And let's take a look at your question. Is it worth getting a CPA over an EA? This is a fairly common question that comes into play, right? Because CPAs have marketed real well. Everybody knows what it is. They've heard of it. And I can tell you, those 3 little letters inspire people who I've never met to tell me their life story, to send me their personal tax documents, sensitive information. They tell me things that their spouses don't know about them just because I have CPA after my name. Okay? So that's a benefit. But at the same time, when they look at the EA, they're like, what's that? So the EAs have not done a great job of marketing themselves as tax professionals. But here's the secret. An EA, on average, will know a lot more about the Internal Revenue Code than a CPA. Why is that? That's crazy, you might say. Well, on the CPA exam, there are 4 sections, or at least there used to be when I took it back in the Stone Age. And one of those sections was the tax law / regulation section, right? Only half of that one section had to do with taxes. The other one had to do with business law, I believe. So you have 4 sections. 1/2 of one has to do with taxes. So 1/8 of the CPA curriculum, as per the exam, has to do with taxes. And when I took the CPA exam, I knew nothing about taxes. I was clueless. I thought that's what I was going to fail out of my MBA program, is that I had such a horrible understanding of taxes that I thought, that's it. It's over for me. I'm going to have to do another job, for the rest of my life. Being an EA, pound for pound, is much deadlier as a tax professional than a CPA. But ideally, you would get both, okay? So you have the recognition on the CPA side, but you have the tax chops on the EA side, okay? In that sense, it becomes extremely difficult to argue that you know your stuff, or at least the appearance is that you know your stuff. I happen to have an alphabet soup after my name, and I can tell you some people look at it and think it's gaudy that I'm trying to make myself seem smarter than I am, and there's probably an element of truth to that. But at the same time, it does communicate a certain minimum level of understanding, no matter how superficial that may be. People see that and they go, okay, I want to deal with him. No, I don't want to deal with the other guy in your practice. I want to deal with you. Okay? So consider doing what I did, which was basically get the CPA first and then get the EA. People get real confused about that. They go, wait a minute, you're a CPA, then you got the EA? Yes, because I recognized the weakness that I had on the tax side. Okay? So others might say, hey, let me get the EA first and then get the CPA on top of that. That's a beautiful thing. Why choose? Because they're not all that far apart. Now, the CPA does have higher education requirements. You need more credits in a good number of the states, I believe. There's a 150 credit requirement. That's not applicable for an EA. So an EA is easier, and it may set you up to then get the CPA and not have to be as flabbergasted by the tax side as I was, all right? Because I didn't know what was coming on that side. So consider getting both, one after the other. I would start with the EA and then go for the CPA. You can also do it the other way, because with the CPA, you do have some foundation to build on, and then you go and grab that EA, and you're swimming in alphabet soup, and money is just pouring down from the sky. All right, guys, listen, thank you so much for all of your great questions. We've been at this for a little bit of over an hour, so I gotta run. But with that, if you're still sticking around, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit that bell icon, because there's a very good chance if you guys keep coming around, we'll make this a regular thing, an hour every week, same time, same day, and we can all tune in and hang out and nerd out about taxes. So hopefully this was helpful. Thanks for watching.